So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about running YUI 3 on Node.js. I mean, how many of you guys here know what Node.js is? Good. So I'm not going to try to explain a whole lot of it, but basically it's a server-side version of JavaScript. So we can run JavaScript on the server to make certain things like daemons and web servers. And I mean, I've seen some funky stuff. I saw Palm the other night talking to a Bluetooth GPS device from a phone with JavaScript. I mean, this is really, really powerful stuff. So what I'm going to try to talk to you about is a little bit about how YUI 3 helps with Node and what makes it so much more powerful, because YUI 3 is it's a standard coding paradigm. You know, we have modules, we have base classes, we have attributes, we have the ability to really, really make these nice little widgets and applications. But if you take that to the server, you get to take that same coding that you've been doing every day and running it on the server, doing things that you never thought was possible. So I've got a couple of slides. I'm going to tell you straight up, this is a hacker presentation. I have 2 slides. You see this one? And we got that one. And that's it. I'm not going to stand up here and show you a bunch of crap. I'm actually going to show you working code. This stuff works. It's definitely a prototype, I will tell you that, because most of the stuff that I'm doing is all in JavaScript, and a lot of this stuff can be off-sourced into C++ land. I just don't know how to do that, so if any of y'all C++ programmers, I'll be standing right over here when I'm done. Okay? So enough with the slides. You know, I hate slides, so I'm done with that. So I'm going to show you guys the code. So the YUI 3, the thing that makes YUI 3 so powerful on the server is the fact that YUI is configurable. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that under the hood, that when we create a YUI instance, it's all sandboxed. You know, everything's all nice and protected. So if you have 2 or 3 of these on the server, you can have 2 or 3 things doing 2 or 3 services and never interact with each other, never touch each other. We also have our module format that allows you to, break up your code into smaller pieces. So imagine if you had code that could run on both the client and the server. So you had a YQL request that was just going out and fetching data and returning a JSON object. You could put that on the server, load it up as a module, and run it on the server and spit the data back out like on a first render. But then you could take that exact same module, dump it on your page, and use JavaScript to load the thing with a script tag and fire off the YQL and get the exact same data back. That's code reuse. That's huge. That's huge code reuse. I don't have to write something 4 times. I can write it once and run it 4 different ways. That's the advantage that we're going to get here. So I'm just going to show you a couple of really simple examples. We have a simple I/O example. The I/O example is going to just post some data and get some data back. And that was kind of hard to see all the fluff at the top, so that's my debugging. But we got up here, this little chunk right up here. That was just a simple post. But the thing is that on the server, you write that with y.io. And on the client, you write that with y.io. It's the exact same code. No matter what you do, they're exactly the same. So I can take that exact code and dump it into a web browser, and it's still going to post that data and return that JSON. This is I believe it's just an API called the YUILibrary.com. All it's doing is posting off to a web service and getting the data back. But if we look at the code, if any of you guys have used y.io, does that look any different than anything you would put in the browser? That's the only difference. The difference is that YUI is so configurable that I can tell it to create a new transport. I can tell I/O, hey, I've got this new way of getting data. Now here, do it. And then I/O works exactly the same way it did on the client. Every part of YUI is exactly like that. Is what makes all this possible. The fact that I can go in and create a module called get. Now everybody knows what our YUI's get does. It goes out and fetches a remote script, right? Well, on the server, it doesn't need to go do that. It's going to load a disk from file and load the module into YUI. So everything that YUI has that relies on get script is still going to work. So like YQL. YQL uses JSONP. JSONP uses get to jump a script tag into a page, right? On the server, YQL uses JSONP. JSONP uses get. Instead of get dumping a script tag in, It's going to load a file from the local file system and execute it just like it normally would. Plain and simple. They're the same. So if we can get it that far down to where these things just work, then you can just do marvelous things with it. You can just overwrite all these special things and have this perfect part of having exactly the same code on your server as you have on your client. So, that allows us, to do the simple things. That's great, data and all. So, I wanted to push it as far as I could. So I found a DOM that will run on the server. It's in JavaScript. That's the part that I need to take care of. I need a C++ DOM. But for these examples, I'm going to show you one. It's called JS DOM, and it will give me a fully working DOM on the server. That, in turn, allows me to use standard HTML. So now, instead of having to work with a bunch of strings on the server, I have a DOM. I can use selector. I can walk through it. I can add classes. I can create elements. I can append elements. I can do everything that I would normally do in a client on the server. And then at the end, I print it. Instead of appending it into the browser, I'm going to print it, and the browser's going to do its thing. So, this example here is just doing a bunch of little bitty things. You can see that we've got actually selector running inside of it. You can see up at the top there's a selector querying for foo, m. That was, when I got that to work, that was just insane. I was just like, this is like the coolest thing ever. So I wanted to see how far I could push the thing. So I started pushing this thing as far as is humanly possible at the moment. And I got a YUI 3 widget to render on the server. This is a YUI 3 overlay. And it's rendering from script. I took all of these examples. I changed none of the JavaScript. I cut and pasted these examples directly from developer.yahoo.com. From the running examples in YUI 3, I put them in here. I didn't modify them. I didn't have to modify them because YUI 3 is just smart enough to know how to do the right things, and the DOM that I'm running under the hood does the right things. So if we look at this one, document create element on the server. Straight up. That is exactly everything that I copied directly from the website. But I got the output on the server. I mean, that's huge. That was pretty cool. That was really cool. So I wanted to see what else I could do. So I started playing around even more. And I got, how about a YUI 3 slider? The entire HTML required to render a YUI 3 widget. Right there. Everything you need. And like that's pretty cool too, right? So see how much farther I can go. How about a tab view? There's a YUI 3 tab view. All of the HTML required to render that thing on the server. And then I wanted to get even more daring. How about a YUI 2 calendar? The entire markup for everything required to render a YUI 2 calendar on the server. And it just worked. So I wanted to do a little bit more than that. One of the largest widgets that YUI has is a data table. How's that? That's a YUI 2 data table rendered on the server. Can you imagine how fast you could render a page if you could make the entire initial view of a hardcore widget all in HTML the first time, and then just have JavaScript attached to it and liven it up and make it pretty and make it sortable and do everything if JavaScript's available. And if it's not, there's your backup plan right there. You have a fully working backup plan already built in, even if you don't have JavaScript available on the client. So that was pretty cool. There's a whole lot of stuff there too. I went another step and did one of the second largest. That's YUI 2's layout manager, fully rendered on the server. So the more I kept looking at this, the more I'm like, there's really something here. There's a whole lot here. We can do phenomenal amounts of things if we had that kind of control on the server. So I started looking around at a few things to see what I could find, and I was able to make things like gallery work. So I was able to pull in a remote gallery item. So everything that's in the YUI 3 gallery is available on the server now. So if anybody wants to make something and put it into the gallery, there it is. You have full access to run it on the server now too. And with the power of YQL, the power of our widget system, and with the power of the gallery, that's a lot of stuff. And then I tossed in the YUI 2, so you get YUI 2 and 3. That's every drop of code that YUI has running on the server. That's powerful. Now imagine what you could do with that. You could write your own widget that's going to turn around and print stuff to the screen, and I could read it on my phone on a 3G connection in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, where I'm from, and still be able to actually do something with the site because all of my data is coming down first, and then the JavaScript shows up later to make it all nice and pretty. But I can't guarantee that I'm going to get that JavaScript because I'm sitting on a 1K 3G connection on a tractor somewhere. It's just not going to work. But this is how we get around that. So as I started playing with it a little bit more, and I couldn't get all this stuff out of my head. Every time that I was sitting down doing this, I just started doing more and more and more, and more things made sense. So I started playing around with Express.js. And Express.js is like a routing system for Node, to where you can really build websites really fast. They've got views, and they've got the route control, and all the pretty stuff to really build a site quick. Well, one of the things that bugged me about it is they still use the same templating that everybody else uses. They use damn string replaces. And it's annoying. It is so annoying to have to put together 4 or 5 HTML files and have to worry about that I need to change the title of this page. So now I got to build this giant templating system to say I need to change the title of this page. There's no point in that. It's annoying that if I have this one piece of content in the middle of my page that needs to highlight a navigation item at the top of this framework of 50 pieces, that's a giant pain in the ass. Well, what if you could run through this stuff and you could query the layout as it was being built and swap the class on an LI? I mean, that's phenomenal. So you got this whole navigation list over to the side that if the class selected is on it, that means that the thing's highlighted. Why can't I, on the server, say y.1 nav li.set or add class selected? That's all I want to do. Well, I got tired of it, so I did it. I built an Express.js view engine that gives you a live DOM on the server to deal with the entire time that the thing is rendering. The entire time that this page was rendered, I had full JavaScript access to it. I set the title of the page, and I modified content inside of it while the page was rendering. That's huge. Everything you see here is a snippet of a bunch of little bitty HTML files that have been tossed together into a YUI instance, and then I have selector, which is that right there is selector and Node would just fix everything that you need. So this is a simple just hi, I'm here page. All this page did was really change the title. Now the second page, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but you see the shadow right here, right? That's going to actually tell you that this item's selected. So when I go up to this page, you can see it's selected now, right? One line of JavaScript. One. I just said remove the class and add it on that one. That's all I did. But then I was able to use Node to say, give me the H1 on the page, and put that number 1 in there. Just to show, this is the simple, just show you how it works. I just changed the 1 there, and I changed the 1 up in the page title. This second page is exactly the same markup as this one. Okay? Exactly the same markup. But I could use 2 lines of JavaScript to change this to a 2 and set this. And that's it. That's all I had to do. My template is working. Now my navigation follows along with me, and I didn't have to write this big, giant, huge templating framework to say, is this thing supposed to be turned on or not when I render this freaking page? And then I went and did it again. So just so you can see, there's 3 pages here. They're all using the same HTML with just a couple of lines of JavaScript to go through and change just little bitty pieces on the page. After I was able to do that, I thought, that was that was pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Well, one of the really, really powerful things about YUI 3 that a lot of people don't get is that whenever we create a YUI instance under the hood, we actually bind a document and a window to that instance alone. So like in the YUI 3 editor, I'm able to create an iframe, and I create a YUI instance that binds itself to the document and window of the iframe. So now selector works inside of that iframe, even though the code's on the outside. So that was really nice for editor. That was really, really good for editor. But in this case, that's even more powerful, because now per request, I can create a YUI instance with its own document and its own window. So I could have 500 documents on the page or on the server, and they're never going to touch each other. So I don't have to worry about anything colliding and touching anything else, because each request gets its own individual document to assemble itself. So if you've got user data or anything like that, they all stay in the same document. And then we're protected because of the way that the DOM works. I can't just specifically move something from one to the other without knowingly having that connection in my hands. If I've got connections to both documents, I can move something from one to the other. But if I don't have that ability because the DOM won't let me. So using that, how many of you guys have ever tried to screen scrape something? Screen scraping sucks. It's horrible. Because you're pulling in this giant chunk of string, and you got to manipulate through it and try to figure out what the hell what you want to get from it. And then if they go through and put one little thing in the middle, you're screwed. Because then you got to go change your scraping again. So now that I can have this specific document to a YUI instance, I'm like, well, why can't I go get somebody else's page and do that? So I wrote that. This next one here will actually show you that it went and fetched the news articles from Dig. I created a YUI instance on the server that went out and said, hey, I'm going to go out here to Dig. I'm going to pull it in, and I'm going to bind that document to this YUI instance. So now I have a YUI instance with Dig's web page in it. So now I can just use selector to say, node.all, give me all these headlines. And then I implemented the DOM level 2 import node. So I could take a node and physically move it from one document to another like you're supposed to. So I was able to take this href, the exact href from Dig, copy it over, and stick it inside the page. That's monstrous right there. I mean, we're talking like 4 lines of code to fetch somebody else's stuff and pull it in, and then just have your way with it. You can just do whatever the hell you want with it. So when I was building this, I thought it was kind of cool that I was talking to Todd. And Todd was talking about wanting to do this scraping type thing, and I thought it was kind of cool. So I built him a little prototype and showed him like 10 minutes after he talked to me about it. And basically, it went out and queried your page, and it just said, hey, how many images do I have on this page that don't have an alt tag on it? That's cool. I can use selector to find that. Gives me a number. Tells me exactly how many of them. I can go in and look at all the A's and find out how many don't have a title tag on it. Then I could just grab all those A's and turn around and do it again and loop through them and go out and fetch the document again and put it in another YUI instance and just start playing with that page too. So it was so easy to do that I couldn't believe that it worked. I mean, I really couldn't. I was not expecting it to actually do what I wanted it to do, and it just did. So that's this example. I mean, it's pretty cool. I'll show you the code in just a minute. I'm going to try to go through these pages so you can see them all, and then we'll look at the code so you can see that there's no real difference between what I'm doing here and what's on the server. So how I said before, there's the YUI calendar. That is a fully functional, fully rendered YUI 2 calendar on the server, but there's no JavaScript on this page. All I had to do was actually render that calendar, and then I walked through on the server, and I made all these links real. So you can see right there, it actually makes a real link. That's the progressive enhancement that we want. If this link actually comes through that I can click on this thing and work, that's the goal. And I can. But the really awesome part is that to do that, I use JavaScript on the server to tell the YUI calendar it needs to highlight that date. So it's the same thing that it's doing in the browser, only it's doing it on the server. That's amazing. It's simply amazing that you can do this. That I can just walk through and click this calendar over and over and over again, and it's going to do exactly what I told it to do. That's the experience I should get when my 3G craps out on me and I don't get the JavaScript. But I'm still using JavaScript to do it. That's the awesome part. And then I'm like, well, let's see if we can get it. Let's see if we can do the data table. And I'm like, that's awesome. There's no JavaScript here either. There's nothing there, but I can still sort my columns. I can still click on these things, and I can still get some kind of experience out of it while my 3G connection is catching up to give me the JavaScript to do all the whiz-bang cool stuff. But I got it for free because it's the same damn thing you'd be downloading on the client. But I get to do it here first. That's the key. So I didn't originally show these with JavaScript on them because YUI 2 is not designed that way. But YUI 3 is. So this next example is the one this is the one that we want to see. The YUI 3 tab view. That's the fully working YUI 3 tab view that was rendered on the server, but it's been activated with JavaScript. So I get my nice little click, 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 right? So everything's just perfectly smooth and grand. But what if I didn't have JavaScript? Say my 3G connection crapped out on me and I have no JavaScript. Guess what? I can still click, 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 move around, and look at my tabs. Because it went right back to the server and did exactly like I told it to do. It turned around and went to the next tab. Again, that is what we want. That's the stuff that we're talking about because it's the exact same code that I put on the server to render this thing is the same thing that I'm including on the page. And they just work. And we got some nice plans in YUI 3 to, we got these steps in the widget rendering. We've got rendering, we've got binding, and we've got syncing. Well, what if we could just stick the rendering on the server and that's the only thing it does, is it renders that widget right out to the server and everything's fine. And then on the client, we skip the render altogether and we just give you the JavaScript that says bind it. Just bind up these little listeners and do what you're supposed to do if you're available. But if you're not, that's what I get. I still get to walk through and use my code. That's the important stuff right here. Now, you know how I was telling you a while ago about the templating, how it sucks to have to change an entire page, right? 99% of the site is done like this. We've got this navigation on the side. We've got content over here. Standard YUI 2 grid. But there's that one shot that you've got to have an entire page to like show some EULA or show something, and you've got to get rid of all this crap. But there's that one page. So that means you got to go into your template system, you got to build all this new crap just to make sure that it doesn't have this navigation on it. What if I told you I could get rid of that in 2 lines of JavaScript on the server without this giant templating engine to figure out what's going on? 2 single lines. I don't have JavaScript enabled, so I can't see the code. But there's the 2 lines that made this page. I grab my nav and I hit remove. And then I replace the class on the body from a T1 to a T7. In YUI 2 grids, T1 has 2 columns. T7 only has 1. That's all I had to do. And I have a full page layout without having to do all this crap code of figuring out this one page needs to be completely different from every other page on the entire site. That's the templating engine I think most of us in this room have been dying for. We have been wanting something like that. So it's easy, it's simple, 1 line, 2 lines, maybe 2 or 3 here and there to change something a little bit. But that's the goal. So now I can show you some of this code. Well, here, there's one more if you wanted to see it, but YQL was kind of being a little slow for me this morning. So that's actually using YQL on the server. So the way the Express engine works is you have like these little you can have views. So you can have these little bitty snippets of HTML. Now the reason I thought that was kind of cool was that in this example, I'm just querying YQL and I'm pulling back all the followers of YUI 3 on GitHub, and then when you click on one of them, it's going to reload the exact same page, but just change this little bit of content with another template. Now, the nice part about this is that little bitty tiny template, since how I hit this with straight up with a web page, it's going to render the entire thing. But if I wanted to, on the server, I could say, was this XHR? Yes. Only give me that template, because that little piece right there is a template. That's all I want back. Well, what if I decided to change my mind and I just wanted to get the JSON data back? Couldn't I just set my content type to application JSON and the thing just give me my JSON back instead? But it's all the exact same code. So if I hit it, pull up, render all these views together. If I hit it with XHR, give me the thing I asked for. Give me just a little bitty snippet of HTML to drop back into the page. If I hit it with XHR with a content type, they give me back that content type. Give me the JSON data back, and I'll do it all on my own. So, it's really, really, really flexible. I mean, really flexible. And I can show you, this code. The code will blow your mind on how simple this stuff is. So, in the views, I have a layout. So if we look at the index page, I have a layout, and then I have an index. That was the index page we looked at. Open that up so we can see it. So this page right here, that was index.html because it just took the center content of it. And then we have my wrapper layout, which had everything else on it. So what the rendering did is it grabbed this, it grabbed the main content, that little bitty index.html file, and it put it under this thing called content. And it just slammed it in there. But when it slammed it in there, it gave you a YUI instance. And that YUI instance was bound to everything that you just had. So now at that point, I've got DOM to do anything else I want. So as you see here, we've got my selected, marked as home. But if I go to another page, like this page 1, we see here there's page 1. So you can see that it's listening on /1 because that's where we're coming in at. But we're going to render same.html. So that page 1, page 2, and page 3, they all rendered same.html. Pulled the exact same template in. And then I tell it, I want to put it underneath pound content. So that's where I want this content to go. I want it to be appended underneath this element. So it's kind of like the old jigsaw puzzle. I'm just going to put all these little pieces together. And then I'm changing my title, just using a y.substitute. That way, at this point, you could actually use YUI3's language packs to replace your strings there, and YUI will just do it for you on the client and the server at the same time. If we've got a language pack that controls our widgets, why wouldn't they run on the server and the client? They're just strings. We'll just change the substitute out with the right ones. And then here's the important part right here. So this is the after. So the after moment, after all these little views have all been stitched together, now I've got my YUI instance bound to this view, and I can do anything that I want to that content of the page in this little bitty tiny callback. So this thing could have stitched together 15 pages. And when it put all these little bitty pages together, that's what makes it special, right there. So I set my title, I remove the class of selected on anything in the navigation that was selected, and I grabbed the one that I wanted and said, that's the page I'm on. Simple. That simple. Every other one of these pages are just like that. There's page 2. Same thing. I just changed the title, and I set selected to 2. Yeah?
Why do you remove selected from all LIs when you only have one selected LI?
Well, just to show what you could do. The point of what it's doing doesn't really matter. The point is it can be done.
No,
so
the point is you have one selected item, so you just find selected, remove the class selected, and put it on one.
Right. I could do that with the same line too. It doesn't really matter. I could just put selected here. I could just say yNavLi.selected and remove class. But thanks for that.
I think the point though is that you can use y.all.
Exactly.
And then you now have a node list.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so the point is just showing the difference between me being able to access 2 or 3 different items inside of this whole layout. So I intentionally kept this little demo very, very light and simple because this demo went up on GitHub about 20 minutes ago. So you guys can fork this thing, you can pull it down, and you can run it right on your local machine and see exactly what you're seeing here. Every drop of it is up there available for you to get. And you can see here that there's number 3, exact same thing. So the nifty part here is the calendar one. So how I told you, YUI just works on the server like you think it does. How about loading an external module? There's your external module. That external module looks like every other YUI external module. It's wrapped with a YUI.add with an anonymous function that passes in Y. The same thing that you would write in your normal JavaScript code to load an external module for YUI, you can do it right here too. So now, if I got this calendar that renders on the server and this external module, I can just load that external module in the browser and it's going to do the exact same thing. That's the point. It's doing the exact same thing on the client as it would be doing it on the server. And that's what I wanted to show here, because there's data table. That data table example is the exact same thing you would see on the server. And they just work inside of YUI because I'm telling it, this is my new module, there's my file path, and I'm using it. And now I'm just going to call it. So it's really, really, that shows the ability to run these things on the client and on the server at the same time. So here's that nice little dig example. I tried to comment it as well I could because the first 2 times I showed this to somebody when I prototyped it, they're like, I have no clue what it's doing. So I wrote some comments in there. But you can see that I'm creating a YUI instance up here at the top. And I'm purposely calling the Y that you would come back from that remote page. So you can understand the difference between an outer YUI instance and an inner YUI instance. So I've got this outer YUI instance that is handling this request. So you have to look at it that way. This is the one that's handling the document that's coming in from this web request. So inside of that, I'm creating another one. And that one is going to go out and call this little method here called fetch. I couldn't think of anything else. I didn't want to call it scrape or something like that, but it's fetch or inject or something. And you give it the URL. You want it to go out, and it's going out to dig/news. And when it returns, this remote page is now the HTML from dig. It is the full DOM on the server of the exact replica of that page that I just went and got. So I can walk through, and I can do an all. I'm doing an all, saying give me all the H3s under the story items. And then I can walk through them, and then right there, that import node. That's the DOM level 2 of being able to move it from one document to another. So I'm just telling the UL to give me that A. That's all I want the A. Pull the A out. Now I can just, fix relative URLs, and then I can append it to my UL on my page and show it. That's pretty slick. I mean, I told you it was only a few lines of code. Without the comments in there, there's only a few lines of code to do that. That's powerful. I mean, imagine all the cool stuff you could do if you could scrape that easily. If you could pull content off of somebody else's site that easily. That's just insane. I couldn't. I mean, like I said, I didn't believe it when I first did it that it was going to work, and it actually did. It worked exactly the way I wanted it to, and YUI behaved exactly the way it was designed to do. And that's pretty slick. I mean, I've got a couple of little fancy things in here that it actually caches that dig call. So if you beat the crap out of it, it's only going to hit dig once every 5 minutes or so. And then there's that notice. There's that one I showed you a while ago. The 2 lines changes the entire thing. That these are like really, really powerful things. And then we got the tab view. This tab view, there it is. Cut and paste directly from. That's why I didn't even bother changing the content, because this is the exact demo that Matt wrote on developer.yahoo.com on how to render a tab view from script. Everything right there. So all I did on the server was I just added a few things. This is something that YUI 3 probably will do in the future, but allow you to put URLs in these A's. Or you could have done that. I mean, in your markup, you want to make this a clickable link. So these things would happen however you have it designed, because you may have extra parameters and URLs and all kinds of crap to pass to it, ULT, something like that. And and the thing that this one does just a little bit different is that when on the main web page, when you change a tab in JavaScript, it'll actually set a cookie to tell you what tab you just changed to. And then over here on the server, I'm going to look for that cookie, and I'm going to set the thing back the next time it renders the page, because you might want to come back to the same tab you left from. I don't know if you guys do, but I like to come back to the page the way I left it. That allows me to do that very, very simply. But it would also do it if I rendered it from JavaScript, because y.cookie did all of it. So if y.cookie set it, y.cookie is going to read it, and it's going to set this thing exactly back to the same way it was, whether it was JavaScript or whether it was done on the server. So that's some pretty powerful stuff. And then the GitHub one here, we got just a couple of YQL requests, and it's just this is a little bit of a hacky thing I had to do to fix some of GitHub's APIs that suck. But this is all standard JavaScript. I mean, if you guys are reading this stuff. This is the same stuff you guys write every single day in the web browser. But I was able to build a website out of it. That's huge. That is monstrously huge. Yeah, so I think that's the last one of those. So this is the next generation. This is the stuff that we should be doing. And right now, like I said, the only caveat that I have with it is the fact that my DOM's written in JavaScript, and it's kind of limited. But if I had like a C++ DOM, like if we could rip the DOM out of say Chrome or Safari or something like that and bind it to Node, then the sky's the limit with what we can do. And then that's what I got. I mean, you guys got questions. I mean, I know somebody's going to have some questions over the way this stuff works. Because I tried to explain it as best I could, but that's some cool stuff.
So, real quick round of applause for Dave. Any questions?